1995, Willamette National Forest, Oregon. The old Jeep groaned with every bump along the dirt road. Mark gripped the wheel with one hand, drumming in rhythm to the sound of Metallica blasting from the worn-out speakers. Beside him, Jessica had unfolded a map across the dashboard. It seemed more like a toy than actual navigation. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. This is it has to be around here. In the back seat, Liam struggled to read a book through the constant jolts. He pushed his glasses up and muttered, "I just hope the place is running water." Next to him, Chris stared nervously into the growing darkness of the forest pressing in on them. Why are we even here? Not even a bird is flying in this place. Jessica laughed, turning back to him. Because this is an adventure. Maya sat quietly by the window, her eyes fixed on the trees outside, waiting for the adventure to begin. At last, the cabin appeared between the trees. The sun was setting, and a lone, two-story wooden cabin stood deep in the heart of the forest. Mark killed the engine. A sudden heavy silence fell, and for a long moment, the five of them just stared at their new home. That first night passed in warmth, the crackling of firewood in the hearth, bottles emptied one after another, laughter rising higher and higher. They were so lost in their little bubble of warmth, they didn't notice the forest outside, listening in silence. By midnight, the flames had died down, and the cold began to creep in. Liam finally spoke. The firewood's almost gone. Mark, still the most cheerful of them all, grabbed a small axe from beside the fireplace. "No problem. Your hero's going out and coming back with a whole tree." He pointed toward the small shed they'd seen outside. 5 minutes. That's all. Jessica caught his arm. "It's too dark. Mark, let me come with you." Mark kissed her hand and smiled. "Don't worry. The monsters are only waiting for me. They won't touch you." He picked up a flashlight, opened the door. "I'll be right back." And then closed it behind him. 5 minutes stretched into 10. 10 into 20. The ticking of the old wall clock echoed through the room like the countdown of a bomb. Chris whispered, his voice shaking. Maybe he got lost. Jessica, pale and trembling, stood up. She rushed to the door, pulled it open, and screamed with all her strength. "Mark!" No answer, only the moan of wind through the trees. She screamed again, this time her voice breaking with fear. "Mark!" It felt as though the forest itself had swallowed him whole. Liam quickly took control of the situation. "We can't panic. Maybe he twisted his ankle. We need to look for him." No one argued about arming themselves. Liam gripped a small axe. Chris found a heavy iron bar near the fireplace. Jessica came back from the kitchen with a large butcher's knife, and Maya tightened her hold on a solid metal flashlight. "We stay together," Liam said firmly. "No one goes anywhere alone." They stepped out of the cabin, swallowed by the darkness. The cold air seeped instantly through their clothes. Jessica kept calling Mark's name, but her voice was smothered by the silence of the forest. They reached the woodshed. Its door hung open, a few pieces of firewood scattered on the ground, but no sign of Mark. Forming a line, they moved deeper into the trees. Every snap of a twig underfoot made them jump. Fear spread like a sickness, passing from one to the other. About 15 minutes later, while they skirted a steep slope, Maya's flashlight caught something glinting in the dirt below. Mark's flashlight, lying on the ground, its beam pointing weakly toward the sky. Jessica's heart froze. Liam carefully descended the slope, the others following behind. At the bottom, the sight waiting for them ripped the air from their lungs. Chris let out a strangled cry and turned his face away. Mark was there, on the ground. His leg was caught in a rusted bear trap, clamped tight, just below the knee. But it wasn't the trap that had killed him. His body had been brutally attacked. His clothes were shredded, and the ground beneath him was dark. It was a scene of pure, savage violence that left little of him recognizable. Jessica's knees gave out, and she collapsed to the ground. Then, a new sound came from behind them. They spun around in terror. 20 meters away, standing motionless at the top of a slope, was a dark figure. The beam of the flashlight fell across its face. No details, only a blank white mask staring straight at them. The killer was there, watching. For a moment time froze. Four of them stood at the bottom of the ravine, while a silent figure loomed above. No one moved. No one breathed. That blank white mask was like the face of death itself, come to admire its masterpiece. Liam was the first to break free from the paralysis of fear. Run, back to the cabin. His words triggered them like a signal. They spun around and bolted, running as fast as their legs could carry them. None of them dared to look back to see if the figure was following. They just ran, leaping over roots, pushing branches from their faces, gasping for air as their ragged breaths echoed through the forest. When they finally reached the cabin, they were shaking and breathless. Liam slammed the door shut and threw the heavy iron lock into place. They pressed their weight against it, as if their bodies could hold it tighter. Chris's voice trembled. What was that? Did you see it? Jessica sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands. She couldn't erase the image of Mark's body. Maya stood by the window, peeking cautiously through the curtain, staring into the forest. Liam tried to stay rational. It's just one man, some lunatic living out here. We need to get out. Right now. Chris snatched the Jeep's keys from the table. I'll drive. In a rush, they unlocked the door and ran for the Jeep. Chris jumped behind the wheel, the others piling in after him. He turned the key. The starter groaned, but the engine didn't catch. He tried again, and again. Nothing. Stop, Liam shouted. You'll drain the battery. He leapt out, yanked open the hood. Even under the weak glow of the porch light, the truth was obvious. The battery was gone. A hollow black space where it should have been wires dangling uselessly. It hit them like a hammer. They weren't just trapped in this forest. The killer had already been ahead of them. He hadn't only killed Mark, he had cut off their escape. As they stared at the torn wires, the lights inside the cabin flickered and died. Darkness swallowed everything. Jessica screamed from inside the Jeep. The generator powering the cabin had been cut, and then from the black void of the house came a sound. The soft, eerie laughter of a woman drifting from a hidden speaker. Behind the laughter, faint but unmistakable, were Mark's final, terrified screams. The killer wasn't just outside. He had left a recorder inside the cabin, and now he was tormenting them with the last moments of their friend's life. The recorded screams of Mark drilled into their brains like a hot drill. Chris, panicked, flung open the Jeep door and jumped out. He's here. He's in the cabin. Calm down. Liam stepped out and grabbed Chris's arm. He's not in the cabin. It's just a recording. He wants to scare us. We need to go back inside, Maya said, her voice steady but shaking. At least there, we have a locked door. Staying out here means waiting to be hunted. It was a choice between bad and worse. They hesitated, then slowly headed back to the cabin. The recorded laughter of a woman and Mark's screams followed them like a twisted soundtrack. Liam opened the door. Darkness inside the cabin was absolute. They stepped in cautiously. The tape player's sound came from the depths of the living room. Liam's hand trembled as he reached for the light switch, but nothing happened. The power was completely out. Jessica, gripping a knife tightly, whispered, "We have to turn it off." Maya aimed her flashlight into the room. The beam swept across old furniture, wooden walls. The tape player sat on a small table by the fireplace, its little red light blinking in the darkness. Liam moved toward it. Every step felt like walking on shards of glass. Just as he reached to press the stop button, the tape suddenly cut off. Silence. A sudden, heavy silence, more terrifying than the sound itself. Then, from upstairs, the sound. The soft creak of a wooden plank, like someone's footsteps. Everyone froze, staring at the dark ceiling above. Impossible. They had been together the whole time. No one had gone upstairs. Chris's voice barely whispered, "Who's up there?" Liam gripped his axe tighter and turned toward the stairs, swallowed by darkness. "I'll go check." Jessica grabbed his arm in terror. "No, don't go alone. Then we all go together," Maya said, shining her flashlight toward the stairs. "We shouldn't split up." Step by step, they climbed the creaking stairs. Liam in front, Maya behind with the flashlight, Jessica and Chris at the rear. At the top, a narrow hallway with 2 closed doors awaited them. Another creak, this time from the door on the right. Liam moved slowly, hand on the cold metal handle. He held his breath and, with a swift motion, opened the door. Maya immediately shone her light inside. The room was empty. Just an old bed, the wardrobe, and a window opening to the forest. The window was open, its thin curtain fluttering in the wind. On the bed lay an old photograph. Jessica stepped forward hesitantly and picked it up. A smiling couple, standing in front of cabin. The very cabin they were in. Who were they? As they stared at the photo, suddenly, a deafening sound came from downstairs. The shattering of glass. They rushed to the stairs and panicked, down to the living room. The window opening to the porch had been smashed. A large rock lay in the middle of the room. Something was tied to it. A familiar piece of cloth from the shirt Mark had been wearing. And on that blood-stained cloth, written in bold letters, "Joke." Liam was the first to snap back to reality. We need to block this window. Now. Hurriedly, they shoved a heavy wooden cabinet in front of the shattered window. It was a flimsy, temporary solution, but at least it gave them a fragile sense of safety. They huddled together in the pitch-dark living room. The only light came from Maya's trembling flashlight, sweeping across their pale, tense faces. The silence was suffocating. Chris, crouched on the floor, whispered suddenly, "That photo, the couple we found upstairs, could this cabin have been theirs and we?" His words were cut off by a new sound from outside, different from anything else that night. The dragging of metal across the stone porch. Slow, scratching, relentless. All 4 froze in place, spinning toward the front door. The sound grew closer, right behind the wooden door. And then it stopped. A heartbeat of silence. Then 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Liam gripped the axe with both hands and approached the door. He peered cautiously through the crack. Seconds passed without a sound. Then he slowly stepped back, his face as pale as chalk. "What did you see?" Maya asked. Liam swallowed hard. No one's there." He paused, voice dropping. "Just the mask. He left his white mask on the stairs, watching us." No one dared approach the doors or windows. They huddled in the farthest corner of the living room, pressed behind a large, worn-out couch. That old piece of furniture felt like the only shield against the monster outside. Time dragged in silence and fear. Every minute felt like an hour. The only sounds were their ragged breaths and Chris's stifled sobs. They waited for the next attack, but nothing happened. The uncertainty, the endless waiting, was driving them insane. Then, in the thick silence, the tape recorder on the table, the one that had played Mark's screams earlier, switched on again. Its small red light blinked in the darkness, and a voice poured from its speaker. But this time, it wasn't a scream. It was the cheerful, innocent laughter of a little girl, reciting a nursery rhyme. A simple, sweet melody, terrifyingly out of place in the suffocating horror around them. Then a man's recorded voice came through, gentle and kind. "Read it again, sweetheart. Read it for Daddy again." Jessica froze. She knew that voice. That melody, that rhyme, that man's voice. It was an old tape from her childhood. Her father's voice. A father she had lost years ago. The attack was so personal, so cruel, that Jessica felt for a moment like she couldn't breathe. "Turn it off," she whispered, voice trembling. Shocked by her reaction, Liam cautiously emerged from behind the couch. Step by careful step, he moved toward the tape recorder. Every part of him screamed that it was a trap. He bent down, hand outstretched. Just as his finger was about to press stop, something else happened. The Jeep's lights, streaming in through the window, suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed everything, except Maya's faint flashlight beam. And immediately after, a deafening, gut-chilling sound erupted from outside. The rev of a chainsaw. The screeching chainsaw ripped through the forest silence. The wooden floor of the cabin trembled beneath their feet. Liam jumped back in fear, retreating behind the couch again. The tape recorder continued to play, blending with the chainsaw's roar, the innocent laughter of a child mixed with the savage growl of a killing machine. "It's going to break the door," Chris shouted, his voice barely audible through panic. "It's coming in." They stared at the front door, waiting for the first scratch, the first crack. Any moment, they expected the chainsaw's sharp tip to burst through the wood, but it didn't. The sound started moving, circling the cabin, like a hungry shark circling the cage of its prey. The chainsaw's roar came near, then faded away, then came near again. Suddenly, it stopped, at a spot by the kitchen wall. And then, with a scream-like, bone-chilling sound, the chainsaw bit into the wood. The killer wasn't cutting the door. He was making his own way through the wall. Chunks of wood and sawdust flew into the kitchen. The whir of the chainsaw's motor was now truly terrifying. They could feel the blade's progress in the wall. A horizontal line, then vertical. Calmly, the killer carved a perfect square in the wall. "We can't stay here," Liam shouted, trying to make his voice louder than the chainsaw's roar. "It's coming in. We have to get out another way." But every door and window opened onto the same porch where the killer was, except for one way, the upstairs window. Jessica yelled, "The room with the open window." It was their only chance. They had to get upstairs, jump out the window, and escape into the dark forest. A reckless plan. The height was dangerous. They might get hurt jumping, but staying in the cabin meant certain death. As the chainsaw made its final cut through the wall, they charged for the stairs. They ran up as fast as they could. At the top, they sprinted toward the room on the right. Liam opened the door. It was the same room where they had found the photo. The window was still open, cold wind spilling in. Liam was the first to approach the window. "It's high, but there are bushes below." His words were cut off by a terrifying crash from below. A large chunk of the kitchen wall fell inside with a loud bang. The chainsaw's roar stopped, and then silence. The killer was inside the cabin. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound from downstairs. The silence was worse than the roar of the chainsaw. They were trapped upstairs, caught in the jaws of a trap. The killer was below, and their only escape was a dangerous leap out the window. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed from the floor beneath them. The killer was heading for the stairs. "We have to jump. Now," Liam whispered urgently, pressing his feet against the window ledge. "I'll go first. You two follow right after me. Don't hesitate." He didn't pause. He threw himself out the window. For a split second, his shadow hung in midair. Then there was the crack of breaking branches, a muffled grunt, and he vanished into the darkness below. "Jessica, go." Chris shoved her toward the window, panic in his voice. The creak of a foot landing on the first stair came from below. The killer was climbing. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut and jumped. For a heartbeat, she felt weightless. Then she slammed into the thorny bushes beneath the window. A sharp pain shot through her ankle, but adrenaline kept the scream locked in her throat. She staggered to her feet. A few meters away, Liam writhed on the ground, his leg bent at a grotesque angle, completely broken. Jessica looked up. Chris's silhouette filled the window frame. But then, another shape appeared behind him. Bigger, darker. The killer had reached the top of the stairs. Chris let out a scream and tried to dive through the window, but it was too late. A massive hand clamped around him, yanking him back with inhuman force. The sounds of a struggle, Chris's muffled cries, lasted only a moment before silence swallowed them whole. Jessica's eyes widened in horror as she stared at the empty window. "Chris," before she could get an answer, a beam of light sliced through the darkness above. A flashlight, shining from a window. The beam swept across the ground, then stopped, right at Jessica's feet. Something dropped from the window. Jessica stumbled back. The light caught it, and she saw Chris's lifeless body crash to the ground, motionless. Suddenly, from the darkness behind her, a voice whispered, "Jessica." She spun around, her heart hammering. Maya was standing there. She hadn't jumped. She had come down the stairs. She had walked past the killer. And now, she was right behind her. It's all about humanity.